Hi guys, we're going to make a simple and quick freezer pop cozy. The original one I had me using a brunette baby blanket yarn that was pretty bulky, and I just did the plain E-wrap knit throughout to get it to be working for being a cozy. But this time I came up with I wanted to use some multicolored yarn because I love using this for designing, and it just requires using a little spool loom. I mean, if you don't have this loom, you may be able to use so many pegs on a different one, but you just need a small amount of space. Again, it's just to go over top of the freezer pops, you'll see. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually use just regular weight yarn that we normally typically use, just a very thin yarn. Originally I said to use a bulky weight because it helps, but I found out if you change up your stitch, you can get away with using just one strand of this. And the other thing you'll probably notice that's on my finger is a different row counter I've received. This a friend got for me on eBay, and I just have to push this each time I do a row. So I have this wearing so I can keep track of when I'm doing that. Now you'll need a crochet hook, you'll need your yarn, you'll need scissors, and of course your looming tool, and again, like I said, the spool loom. These you can find sometimes at Joann Fabrics online, or you can look on Amazon. And I basically think they're just called spool looms. This was the original like nifty knitter one, so I just wanted to let people know it's not. I've used this in tutorials before. So we need to make a slip knot. Now you're also going to want to leave a good amount of tail, probably about 6 inches. And then you're going to do your little slip knot. And then you're going to take and drop that in. You're using the bigger part of the spool loom, and so you're going to drop it in. And it comes out the bottom, and you can just give it a little tug, but you're going to place it on one of the pegs. It doesn't matter which peg. Let it fall down through, and then just give it a little tug to be on there. Now all we're going to do now is a simple E-wrap knit for the cast on. Nothing fancy. You get back to your starting peg. You can push them down if you need to as you're wrapping around. And again, with multicolored, it'll kind of create its own design. That's what I like about using them for some projects. If you don't really want to sit there and think of a design. Get to the last peg, and now all you do is you find your tool, and you knit over. And this is just locking it in place. So that's the first thing you do, is a cast on row. Again, your string that's at the bottom, you're just going to give it a little tug. Not too hard of a tug. You don't want to pull it too hard. Just a gentle tug so that it can help the yarn work its way down. And then go ahead, oops, missed one, and push these all down. Now the stitch I found that works really well with using just a worsted weight yarn, the thin as we have here, is to do like a chunky stitch. And that's why you want the tail through, because as you can see it gets narrower in the bottom. This part is narrower. So as it builds up, it's going to be tougher coming through. So you're going to be using this to gently kind of work it down the tube part of this. And we're going to only do 12 rows of chunky knit before we take this off the project. That's a good width for when you're hanging on to the cozy. It's about the width of my hand. If you have bigger hands, you can obviously quickly add more rows to it. And I like to do about 5 even for my daughter, because that way I'll grow with her. So now we're going to do the chunky knit, which if you remember is we're going to rewrap the pegs each, go around again. Now we have 2 loops. Now we're going to go around again, so we have 3 loops on each peg. When you get back to your beginning row, as you see there's already 3, gently push it down, wrap it the 4th time, and what I like to do is first lock this one in place, and I'm going to take the bottom 3 loops over the top loop and right over the peg. Be careful of how you wrap it. If you wrap too tight, which I may have done, it's going to make it knitting over a little harder. But also you're not going to be holding it the way I'm holding it when you're doing it. And just go ahead and push that down. Go to the next one. Go ahead to the next one again, push it down. You can push all these down now so that you'll be all ready for when you go around the loom. And then again you're going to wrap. And I tend to like to work one at a time. It makes it a little easier for doing it to make sure you don't get it wrapped too tight, and keep it gentle. I'm not forcing this down really tight. I'm just letting it be kind of loose and gently keeping my thumb there to keep it from unraveling. You can wrap more than one if you want, but again, just keep your wrapping kind of loose, otherwise it's going to be hard to knit over. We got 2 more here. Again, we're just simply knitting over. Now go ahead and push it down, and what it's going to do is work itself down the hole that's there, and as you can see, and then do a gentle tug on the string that's coming out the other end, and then go ahead and wrap again, making sure you're starting with the right peg, and just go around. What I like is you can end up holding it just like this and just working it around. Get back to your beginning. Now you're doing your third one. And again, keeping your string loose coming through your fingers so that it doesn't make it too tight when you have to wrap around. Okay. Once you get back to your beginning one, again, push it down, wrap it, and then go ahead, like I like to do, and knit it over then. Now go ahead and push down all the rest in that row. And if you gently wrap, you can gently wrap them all. Hold it loose. Remember, you're not making it too tight, otherwise you won't be able to knit over. Then just go ahead and knit over. And that's 2 rows of the chunky knit. So I'm going to hit this twice. It's on my thumb, and this is keeping track of how many rows I've already done. So that's only 2 rows of it. But what you'll see it do is kind of build up in here. That's why you want to keep pushing them down. And you might even use your thumb to kind of push them down a little more. And again, every time you do a row, just give a gentle little tug on that. That will help guide it through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off screen and do that another 10 times. And then I'll show you how to take it off the loom and turn it into the freezer pop cozy. After getting our 12 rows done, you'll see that it actually comes through the project pretty well. And all I did was gently tug on the string that I had, and then once it started to appear, you just gently tug on that to work it through, because again, this part is pretty tight. But I've already done 12 rows, and now we gotta take it off, and we're gonna do a crochet bind off working on the loom. We're gonna re-wrap every peg twice. So I'm going right back to the first peg I had, and I'm gonna wrap and knit 1 over, and then knit 2 over. And I'm going to take that loop and move it over to the next peg. And I was pulling on the string. Then you're going to knit that over, wrap 1 more time, wrap another time for 2 times around each peg, and then move it over to the next. And continue that until you get back to the beginning. To the last one, knit over, 1 and 2, and put it on the last peg, knit that over, do 1, then 2. Now this time you're going to cut yourself a tail because we're getting ready to take it off the loom. And then what you want to do is you want to gently take it off the loom, keeping that loop on there. You want to make sure this loop is available, and then gently slide it through the project. Don't lose that loop. Now you can take your crochet hook and you can go into that project, or into that loop, and then what we'll do, and I know it's a little hard to see because of the darkness of the yarn. I'm trying to think if I have anything I can put behind me so that you can see a little better. You see what I'm doing? A little lighter background here. So once you got it back on the loop, you're going to go ahead and you're going to knit. You already did your 2 loops. Now you're going to go in and find where the next one was in the project, so that you can kind of bind it together. And grab a couple of those, bring it back over the front, and there's 1 more over here, and then you bring it back over your front. And now go ahead and take the yarn tail that you have and work it completely, get on there, completely through the project. And then what I like to do is add another little knot. What I also do once I take it off is I like to go ahead and kind of stretch it a little bit, just to make sure it fits on the freezer pop. I give it a little stretch. And now when you put the freezer pop in, obviously be careful because you might get caught on the yarn inside. So if you can, kind of scrunch it up and then put your freezer pop in the part that's wider, and just watch out for the strings on the inside. So it's better for an adult to put it on the freezer pop than it is for a child, because they may not realize that it's getting caught and they may ruin it. The other thing I like to do is, the reason I leave the tails is I like to tie them together, leaving a little bit of a gap, and the reason is so that when they get wet, you can easily hang them up on a hook or so to dry. I would recommend hand washing these and not putting them in the washer and dryer. It may shrink them down a little. But again, if you just tie the two tails you had together, and then you trim them, what it does is allows you to also hang this project up on a hook after they're done using. But see, they're pretty nice, and as you can see by the picture before, that they work pretty well. And again, just make sure when you're putting them on that you watch out for any of the yarn inside. And